Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gabester here. This is the DPS guide for Normal and Heroic Hans and Franz. And overall this fight is fairly simple. Best thing you can do is focus on your positioning so that you're able to easily handle the environmental plate phases. And otherwise there are just a few basic mechanics to watch for. So let's get started. So you should be aware that both bosses share a health pool, so you can freely cleave and dot all you want. And as they will lose health throughout the fight, they gain more rage. And this rage increases the damage they deal, but as relevant to DPS, it also increases the frequency of their basic mechanics, their basic abilities. So just be aware that as the fight goes on, you'll have to be more aware of the boss abilities themselves, in addition to the environmental mechanics. Now, while Hans'gar is active on the platform, so he's being tanked down below, he will occasionally use Body Slam on a targeted, ranged DPS player. If you get targeted by this, you will have a red arrow over your head, and after a few seconds he will leap to your location and hit you along with anyone else within about 12 yards. So, the best thing you can do when you get targeted by the arrow is move away from the rest of the raid. This will prevent anyone else from getting hit, and the damage yourself that you get hit with yourself cannot really be avoided. He always lands at your location, so just do your best to be away from others and you'll be fine. This ability will be more frequently used, and he'll basically jump in succession multiple times the higher his rage gets. Usually this means he will jump from one end of the range group to the other end in opposite sides. So just make sure you're spread apart from other players when this is happening, so if you get targeted, you can be away from them. Another ability for DPS to watch for is from Franzok this time, and this will only affect caster DPS essentially, those people with cast times. This is Disrupting Roar, and this will, as you might imagine, interrupt your casts if you are casting while it completes. It's worth noting that as the rage increases on the bosses, Franzok will cast this in a faster period, so it becomes more and more difficult to stop your casting in time before it goes off the later the fight gets. Now, at various health levels throughout the fight, you will have to deal with some of the plate mechanics, and these will always go in the same order. So you'll always start with Searing Plates, as you see here. Now, the patterns that Searing Plates can be in are essentially one-offs, which you see here. So every 2.5 seconds, a plate will come down one of the conveyors, and they will continue in a particular direction. Or you'll get a row of plates with one safe gap between them. I don't have any footage of the row pattern, but the basic idea is still the same. So you want to position yourself in the middle of the room, and when you're dodging plates, you want to move side to side, never against the conveyors. If you're moving forward and back, it will be much more difficult for you. To do so, you need to use the gaps between the conveyors. But essentially just watch the walls, see where the gap or safe position is, move side to side. Your safety avoiding these plates is far more important than your DPS during these periods. The other plate type are the press plates, and these are far more interesting. You can see that they will press down on the various conveyor patterns. You can look in the description again for the spreadsheet that shows the various patterns that are available if you want, but overall the basic rule of thumb here is to stand in a position that is touching four corners of the inside conveyor grids. So you can see there are four raid markers along the middle line there, center line, and these are the four safe positions that we chose. So generally speaking, players want to start from one of these corner positions touching four corners of the conveyors, and that'll make it very easy to find a safe position to avoid the press plate patterns. From each of those locations, you can always move less than one full grid square to find a safe spot. And then you just move back to that corner position and repeat it for each of the, pressing. There's also a trick that you can use, but it takes some practice. That's essentially to utilize the gaps between the conveyor belts to avoid these slams. So you can see here I'm slightly against one side and then moving to the other side. So even though I'm still up against where a plate is coming down, because I'm in that gap between and slightly off to the opposite side of it, the plate itself won't hit me. So there you can see it happen again. This one I don't need to do it. But that's a good pattern that you can sort of get used to doing. And if you do this properly, you only have to move maybe 1 or 2 yards. So here I don't do it properly. I get hit by those. Let's see if there's another one coming up. I can't remember. Yeah, here we go. So that one I avoid, and that one I avoid. I move a little far on that one. So I hit the conveyor. The idea is to stay in that inside gap so that you're not touching the conveyor belt and therefore getting pushed along. But you're still far enough to the side that you avoid it. So there, that one worked. That one I went too far. It takes a bit of practice because you don't have to move actually very far. This one works as well. So yeah, you can see the idea there. You're just moving the opposite side of where that plate is coming down near you, but you're still on that center gap, so it's okay. The other thing to note is that getting hit by a plate here or there is not critical to your survival. You just don't want to get hit by too many in a row because there are other sources of damage going on. So do your best to stay in those center lines at the 4 corner positions, and you should be able to dodge them pretty easily. So that's pretty much it. Overall, it's a pretty simple fight for everyone involved, DPS included. Just watch those body slam and disrupting war mechanics if you're ranged DPS. Melee, it's mostly just about positioning yourselves behind the bosses at all times, watching for the environmental effects. You'll probably want to use your big cooldowns near the end of the fight because the last 15% are when things become the most hectic throughout the fight. That's likely when your raid will want to Bloodlust, unless you do it at the beginning, which is also completely viable. So, anyway, as always, good luck, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. So I was thinking, if you subscribe, I could then show my support to you and get a tattoo with your name on it. Maybe put it on my lower back, tramp stamp style, maybe my face. That's always classy. Let me know what you think.